Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. Today I'm going to talk about some complicated feelings I have with the classics genre. So I think this is pretty common, or at least relatively universal, that people either love or hate classics. And for me, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle, and I'm just going to talk about why that is and why I think that is. So it's going to be, I guess, kind of a little bit about a discussion, video-ish stuff, but really it's just going to be my reasonings for why I've struggled reading classics, the classics that I like, and then at the end I would just like some recommendations based on my interest or disinterest from you guys. I would love to hear your opinions. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. So I think for the most part, I live in America, and a lot of teenagers in America have required reading at some point during their school years, if not for the majority of them. So my journey really starts way back in like first grade, I would say. And we really started reading classic novels, or just interesting choices, I guess, because I don't think some of them were classics, but I really remember reading books back in maybe like third and fourth grade were the first times. I have a terrible memory, so I can't be 100% certain which grades were what. But I do believe in second or third grade, we were given A Wrinkle in Time, and we were reading that in class. And I went to Florida and I missed all of it. And I was very, very upset because I remember starting it with my class, and then I went to Disney World, which was great. But I actually remember being very upset that I couldn't finish that book. And at the time, my like second grade brain just didn't think that I can go get the book on my own or go to the library and rent it. Like, it just didn't work that way. So I remember being devastated that I never actually read Wrinkle in Time. But that was kind of the first introduction. And now prior to, I'm pretty sure I want to say I started reading Harry Potter in like 2001, 2002. So in like fourth and fifth grade. Prior to that, I wasn't really a reader. So I remember like how devastating it was that I wanted to read a book, A Wrinkle in Time, and couldn't. And I feel like the choices that you had in kindergarten were just so much it was just meant to have fun. It wasn't like trying to push an agenda or like get you to think critically. It was like, we're having fun, and I loved it because from there we ended up reading other books that I absolutely adore. Sometime before sixth grade. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory. I'll kind of back it up. My school was very, very small. My school district was also very small. So in one school, I grew up with a kindergarten through sixth grade all in one building. And then seventh and 12th grade were all in another building. So as you could see, like, we were all like grouped in. Now the elementary school was a little bit spaced out. So they had like kindergarten in like one area, and they just stayed there. And then first through third grade were on one floor, and then fourth through sixth grade were on the second floor. And you never really mingled. Like, you had no reason to go like up or down floors unless you were running errands, which was really fun and off topic. As you might be able to see, so by the time I got to fourth grade and we started reading more interesting things, I read books such as Island of the Blue Dolphins, my like all-time favorite book. It's so beloved to me that I was so excited that I saw like an older copy that was hardcover in a store one time, at a used bookstore. So we read that. Loved it. We read Hatchet. Absolutely loved Hatchet. We read Holes, which I don't think Holes, again, was a classic necessarily, but I loved Holes. That was sixth grade, I believe. We also read Bridge of Terabithia, one of my favorite books. And like I said, I think during this time, all of these wonderful classics, they were just meant to have fun. Like, we would have group story time. We would have discussions. Like, there was no pressure to read these books. It was just part of the curriculum, and we had a great time. So I think where my problem with classics began was in seventh grade, when I moved to the high school and we had more reasons to read. So at this time, between sixth and seventh grade was required reading. I believe, if my memory serves me right, in seventh and eighth grade, I was in the high English, because there was like 3 different subsections. Like, there was English, like the lower English class for like people who really struggled in it. There was like the average, like the normal paced English class, and then there was the advanced, and that's what I was in. So with advanced in 7th and 8th grade, we had required reading. Now I believe in 9th through 12th grade, every single class had required reading, but it was just 7th and 8th that it was just the highest class. So we had required reading. And I do remember, I can't remember all the books off the top of my head, but Johnny Tremain was one of those required readings. And I loathed that book. It was so dry. I didn't care about the war. I didn't care about anything. And I just remember, I think I got to like page 70 and I like was like, well, I'm failing this test. And this is where I kind of think why I started to hate some of the classics that we were forced to read, because we would be forced to read a book, and if we just truly didn't enjoy it, then we were tested. Now, I have a complicated history with testing. Testing for me was a nightmare. I don't test well. I have a bit of test anxiety, and I have a terrible memory. I'm so much better having discussions with people about books, partly why I like to do YouTube at this point, because I love talking about that. But talking about it helps me remember things a lot more. Or if I finish a book and I immediately like write up a review or write up a talk or do like a review on YouTube, it helps me so much better to keep my thoughts retained, because come, a couple weeks, couple months later, I don't remember it. And that's exactly what happened in school for me. And it was every year, not just in 7th grade, but 7th through 12th, where I just struggled to remember and retain the knowledge. And that was the rough thing, because I think if you told me to write essays, I would have flourished. But because you told me, well, my school told me to memorize a book and then answer a multiple choice question test on what happened in that book, like it was just silly things like, this was Johnny's best friend. This is why he deserted, or something, right? I don't know. I don't remember it because I didn't read it. And 2, you're asking me such specific details and I just don't have a good memory. And I started hating the required reading, which is unfortunate because I definitely liked some of the books that were given, and I struggled with so many more books. And I think it just really hindered why I liked classics so much, because in my head, classics are now associated with memorization, and I don't do memorization very well. So like I said, I struggled with that. But then on the flip side, again, for my reading class in 7th grade, I remember I had this weird thing with Harry Potter, that like Harry Potter was like my niche. I loved it. I was a worshiper. And anything that got really big hype that wasn't Harry Potter, I was always kind of like, ugh, no, that's not it. Harry Potter's that for me. So the series of unfortunate events, which was really big during the time that I was in school, I should have loved it, but I refused to read it. And then in 7th grade, during one of my reading classes, that was a required assignment. We read it, kind of had discussions together. I loved it. Go figure. So again, there was kind of like every time it was given that there was an open discussion, it worked out so much better for me. Now, flash forward throughout the rest of the year. I'm not going to kind of go through every single years, but throughout the rest of high school, there was a definite theme of books that I really, really enjoyed and books that I didn't. The biggest topic, might not be a shocker, is I loved dystopians. So I absolutely loved Brave New World. I absolutely loved Animal Farm. And I will say that Fahrenheit 451 was interesting to me, but I never finished it. And I think that's one of those books where I don't think I would have enjoyed it as a teenager, but now that I'm older, I can appreciate it much more. And the concept is very intriguing to me. Similarly, I also liked any kind of fantasy. There was very minimal fantasy books, but we did have to read the Chronicles of Narnia. I believe that was 8th grade. Loved it. Who would have thought? And other books that I really loved were The Great Gatsby, To Kill a Mockingbird, and shockingly enough, because I think I was the only one in my class who actually liked it, The Grapes of Wrath. I don't know if you can even gather where my reading tastes are, because truly, I don't even know where they are, because some of these are just so different and varying that I don't know why I liked certain books and why I didn't like others. I do think we can kind of look at what books I didn't like reading to kind of generate why I end up having this complicated relationships with classics. So for instance, I remember being forced to read the Scarlet Letter twice. Once was in high school, it was my senior year, and the second time was in college for a romantic period class that I took in literature. And both times I never read it. I hate the Scarlet Letter. I apologize for any of those lovers out there. I cannot get into that book to save my life. I can't do it. And I had to try both times. And I remember the thing that saved me in high school was that we switched English teachers my senior year. So for the first month of school, we got through 2 of the tests, and then the teacher became the principal, and we had a new English teacher. So the new English teacher asked, did we finish all the tests for these books? And we all said yes, because, we don't want to have another test that we don't need. So I never had to take a test on the Scarlet Letter. And somehow I barely got by in college too. Like, I just faked it, but I made it. We're here. We graduated. But that writing is so dry to me. It's very dry. It's just not interesting, and I can't do it. In a similar vein, I also struggled with The Catcher in the Rye. It's a book that on paper, it should be up my alley. I was a psych major. I was an English minor, writing minor. And that's one of those books that feel like I should love it. I had a hard time reading it. It was a very dry book. Also with Lord of the Rings and Dracula and Alice in Wonderland. Now, I've read Alice in Wonderland, but I thought I was going to love it, and I did and I didn't. Like, I loved the concept, but reading it was torture. I was even wondering why I kept reading it at any point. And I think the only reason I finished is because it was a short book. I've tried to pick up The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit many times. I finally read The Hobbit last year, but I did it through audiobook. I kind of cheated, if you will, just because it was easier to consume that way. And with other things such as The Catcher in the Rye and Johnny Tremain, those kind of books, they just have this dry sense about them. And I think that's really what gets me stuck. The reason that I'm talking about this today is because I had a question about, Jane Austen, or like what books, like classics, do I read? And it was so hard because I would love to be able to talk about classics in a way that we can have really great discussions on my channel. But I have such a complicated history with them. And because of that complicated history, I'm so hesitant to pick up classics nowadays. For instance, Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte, I've never read a single thing. I just never did. I was always kind of nervous about reading them. I was unsure if I would like them, and I was also afraid that it would be those dry reading styles that I did not like. Again, there's been other classics that I've read since high school, such as Frankenstein, where I absolutely loved it. But I don't feel like that writing style was dry, so I'm not really sure. And I'm going to pose the question to you guys watching this video. Is there like a time period that the writing style stopped becoming dry or mundane and then like became like more interesting? Or is it just me? Like, am I just very selective? I think with Mary Shelley, for instance, her writing almost seemed a little bit more modern. And I don't know if it is because she's a little bit more modern compared to some of these other authors. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just at a loss. I would like to read more classics, but I don't know what classics to read. And I need them to be interesting enough to me because I also don't want to torture myself of reading these classics. I'm not someone who is so inclined to read the classics. And I definitely am a person who I think it would be much easier to consume it in a different media, whether that is audiobooks or it could simply be movies. But with movies, we have that caveat that they're not always going to be accurate. And I don't want to just say like, well, I watched the movie because oh my God, those classic lovers out there are going to come for my skin if I say that. So that is where I'm at with these classics. The last time I had picked one up, I would probably say is The Hobbit, which was last year. I also read Psycho last year. And I don't know if that's considered a classic at this point. It was like 1930s. But those are the last 2 I've read. I can't say that I read anything recently that's been a classic. Now, I do own Jane Eyre. I have been told that I might not like it because of the writing style, but that I might like the story. So it's really hard because I've considered picking that one up and I think I would like it. I've also, like I said, I really want to give The Lord of the Flies and Fahrenheit 451 chances again because I think I would appreciate them much more now, especially given that dystopian kind of fight to the death things that they both have distinctly. I don't think they're the same together, but Lord of the Flies has this like island trapped kids fighting for themselves. And Fahrenheit 451 has like burning books and it's dystopian and everyone's supposed to have a perfect life. I think I would like both of them. I would love to give them another try. And in general, I would like to try to get through some of the other classics such as Dracula, Haunting of Hill House, and The Picture of Dorian Gray, all I think within possibly like a horror concept or anyway, that I just think I would like, and I like the source material and the idea, but picking up the books scare me. So I'm going to pose the question to you guys, now that you listen to me rant and rave, and I don't even know if this video makes sense, but I don't even care because this is what's going up. But I want to know, based on kind of where my preferences have lied since 3rd grade, where I remember reading books all throughout high school and kind of explaining the books that I've definitely liked and the books that I cannot stand or really won't pick up ever again. Where do you think I should start? Do you have any recommendations for me as far as a classic that I should start with that you think I would actually truly like? Or even the ones that I said that I would like to give a try from those piles? Do you say like, yeah, definitely start with Fahrenheit 451 if you like dystopians, or Picture of Dorian Gray was really easy to read, why don't you try that one? Or you probably will like Jane Eyre, it's pretty easy. I don't know. You guys just let me know. And if you don't, if my list, I mean, this isn't comprehensive. There's obviously classics that I didn't mention in this video that I probably have read, as well as classics that I've absolutely hated. But take away everything that I have mentioned in this video that I've read and loved. If you have any other suggestions, I would love to know them. And then maybe we will do a dedicated vlog, because I kind of like doing dedicated vlogs. They're really fun. And I think you kind of get that sense of where I'm coming from with a lot of it when I can, again, say it in the moment and kind of review my thoughts. So that is my homework assignment for you guys. Please give me suggestions of where to start with classics, and I will update you as I read more of them. But that's the video. I hope you enjoy this rant and rave and understand maybe why I have issues with classics. If you have any further questions, let me know down below. But otherwise, I'm going to thank you in advance for your suggestions, and I hope to see you guys back for my next video. Until next time, bye.